Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Activating Greatness, the show where we dig into what it really takes to lead with purpose, inspire performance, and create lasting impact. As always, I'm your host, Alec McChesney, and every episode we sit down with leaders, thinkers, and changemakers who are unlocking potential in themselves, their teams, and their organizations. Here we talk about the real stuff, leadership that drives culture, strategy that creates momentum, and the mindset that turns good intentions into game-changing results. Because greatness, it isn't a title. It's a choice. It's something you activate every single day. So thank you. Thank you for listening, for showing up, and for being a part of a community of leaders who refuse to settle for good enough. Now, let's dive in and meet today's incredible guest. I usually say guest. This is actually our first episode, Lorri and Laura, with two people on the Activating Greatness podcast. And I definitely know it's the first time that we've had two best friends and hosts of another podcast, the Mile 20 podcast. Together, these two have completed the incredible challenge of running a marathon in all 50 states. And along the way, they've collected unforgettable stories filled with heart, humor, and a whole lot of adventure. Their journey is about more than miles. It's about friendship, resilience, and saying yes to doing epic things. Whether you're a runner, a traveler, or just somebody who loves a good story, I know you're going to love this conversation. And I am excited because we've had an NFL quarterback who moved into the art world on this podcast. And now we have two people who may or may not be insane on a day-to-day basis, running multiple marathons in the whole globe. I heard today on the podcast that we're at 62 between the two of you together. You guys have run 62 podcasts or 62 marathons together. Is that correct? Am I right in that?
We've ran 62 together, but we are at 72 marathons total with us both.
Oh my goodness. And that is too many marathons, just right out of the gate, but it's also a testament to what greatness is. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited to have you both on the podcast is when we think about leadership and we think about greatness, especially in our world here at Velocity Advisory Group, you so often go to a CEO or you go to a VP or a director. But what I've loved about this show is that each of those individuals has their own story, and half of them have half of them struggle with, should I even be in this role? Have I done enough? And I shouldn't even be on the podcast. And greatness and leadership takes all different shapes and sizes. But I think the thing that has remained through now 30 episodes of our show is consistency, discipline, and community. And the two of you just live that on a day-to-day basis. And so I'm really excited to ask you guys some questions. But before that, would love to give you both the chance to maybe, further introduce yourself and maybe give a little bit of background on Mile 20.
My name is Lorri Feckman.
Hello, Lorri.
Hello.
Hey.
I am a retired stay-at-home mom.
I love it.
Graduated.
Every time you say that, dude. She usually does it with air quotes too. So I'm a retired stay-at-home mom.
Yeah. I've spent the last 20 plus years raising my kids. I mean, back in the day, I had a Bachelor of Science in biology with an emphasis in zoology, and I worked in that field for a bit until I got pregnant and decided I wanted to stay home and raise my kids, which is a choice I've never regretted. Moved into running to have something that was mine. I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism in my 20s, and I was prone to gaining weight, and I like to eat and drink. So
you still do.
I do. And running became a way to mitigate some of the damage that I could do to my body. And
then it does.
It does. And then, through the years, it kind of unfolded, and I had a crazy dream to do a marathon in all 50 states. And then I met my best friend in 2014.
Yeah.
And she joined me on the journey.
That's me, by the way.
Yeah, that's Laura.
For those at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's kind of how the journey started. We can get into more details a little bit, but I'll let Laura introduce herself.
Yeah. Hi. And Alec, first, like, I just want to say thank you so incredibly much for having us on the podcast. I think that this is a really cool crossover because this is the first time that we have been interviewed. We've interviewed a lot of people on our podcast. So this is the first time we're in the hot seat. So this is kind of
I can't
cool.
wait.
So you want to talk about first,
I'm
right?
gonna grill you the whole time.
Oh, please do. Please do. So my name's Laura Lee. I am an executive. I'm a VP at Comcast. I've been there for a little over 12 years. And I started out my career as an engineer officer in the Army, graduated from West Point. And I'm going to say the year in 1993, because my ass is old. And or older, and I think that that will be a common theme, as we're talking through our journey, together. But I'm married happily for almost 33 years now to my husband Jim. I have a daughter who is just turned 30. She's a lawyer in Philly, and she got married about 2 years ago. So we're waiting on some grandbabies now. No pressure. I keep saying that. I was like, no pressure. But
There's loads of pressure.
I know.
Yeah, there's so much pressure. There is so much pressure.
I want to be a Tutu. That's going to be my grandma name, Tutu.
Oh, I love it.
But right. But I got into running in 2004. So when I was in the Army, I hated running. And running it always felt like a punishment, just like like something you had to do, not something you wanted to do. And so in 2004, my youngest brother, I'm the oldest of four kids, my youngest brother, Ned, was diagnosed with cancer. And unfortunately, he lost his battle. I'm sorry, in 2003. And in 2004, he lost his battle with cancer. So, I was in my early 30s trying to figure out how do I cope with this? How do I go into, some counseling groups? I found the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and I always loved a challenge. And part of their program was a thing called Team in Training, where you sign up to run a marathon, and they help you train. It's a 20-week program. They still have this program in place. So you could go out to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society or teamintraining.org and check them out. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to sign up for a marathon and raise money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society in memory of my brother. And I figured I'm going to be a one and done. I ran the Disney Marathon because that was one of his favorite places to go. And I finished it in 2005. And then I ran like 2 more Disney marathons because I wanted to raise up to $27,000 because he died at 27 years old. Yeah. So I raised $27,000. And then I ran a couple more. And then that's when Lorri and I met in 2014. And we met at a running group. And, she had shared eventually that she was, I'm running. It's like typical Lorri. I have goals. I'm going to run a marathon in each of the 50 states. And I'm like, great, good for you. And then every time she signed up for another marathon, I was like, I'm going to run that with you. And then finally, it was like 2015, we ran the Rehoboth Marathon, and we normally do a no shower happy hour. It's when we finish a race and we just plant our asses at a bar and drink.
Yeah.
And because that's always healthy for you after you run a race.
Absolutely. It's what you should do.
And what did you say to me when we're sitting at the bar?
Well, I was talking about a race. You're like, oh, I'll do that one. And I just looked at you and I said, you're doing this with me. You know that, right? Because you keep signing up for these races. So it sounds like you're doing this with me.
And that's how it happened.
Now, when did the podcast come along? I've got a couple of high level questions that I need to ask, but I want to start with, when did the podcast come along and why the podcast? I think 60 plus episodes. I've listened to a couple. I listened to I would call it a scathing review of a couple of the marathons. And then I learned so much about the Boston Marathon. So you need to go check out these episodes. But why the podcast? Why that format, and what led to it? And why are you still doing it so many episodes later?
Well, I'd say it was very much driven by our children.
Yes.
Laura was really great at documenting, taking lots of photos on our journey and everything while we were doing this. Our goal, which started out as my goal, but became our goal, was to run a marathon in all 50 states. But to do it, there are companies out there where you can do 5 marathons, 5 days, and knock out 5 states. And that was not the experience that I wanted. I wanted it as an excuse to go and explore random places in the United States. I thought it was a really cool way to connect with our country.
And ditto. And we were completely aligned on that.
Yeah.
It was going to be about the journey, not
just doing it, not just checking a box to say I did it.
Yeah. So we were terrible journaling. Didn't journal.
We regret that. We regret that terribly.
Yes, journal your journeys. Everybody should be journaling out there. But Laura was really great with Facebook posts and pictures and things like that. So finally in 2023, when we finished Hawaii, the kids were kind of like hemming and hawing, like, oh, it's too bad. And then was it Maggie?
Yeah, I think Maggie.
I think it was Maggie.
Your daughter,
but
Maggie.
May have been one of the other kids was like, you guys should do a podcast.
And we're like, what? Who the hell wants to listen to us?
Yeah, I think I drug my feet on it longer than both you and Maggie did, because Maggie's like, I'll produce it. And we're like,
oh, I love it.
Okay, that's at my oldest
daughter. We knew nothing about podcasting. Like I mean, it's once you learn, like what equipment you need and software and how to post things and, how to structure a podcast, and you listen to other podcasts and what do you get attracted to or not. That's really how we learned. I mean, this was something that we all kind of jumped in together and knew nothing about, before doing it.
But the purpose of it is kind of twofold. Like, we are two women in our 50s, kind of like in that place in life that's similar to like mile 20 of a marathon. So at mile 20 of a marathon, we have notoriously started for a long time now. Not started. For a long time.
Started.
I don't know. I always get embarrassed to talk about it.
Please, go for it.
It's not.
You do cocktails at mile 20, man.
Yeah,
like every
I've
race.
heard you're hiding alcohol at mile 20.
We do
that's
every
when
race.
That's when you hit the wall. And you have made the decision that there's going to be a vodka Red Bull at mile 20, and it's going to
Prosecco or beer.
And it's going to give you that boost you need for the final 6.2.
It's a mental distraction, and I think that it started when we did the Philadelphia Marathon in 2015. And Lorri hit a point in the marathon in a town called Manayunk, and Conshohocken Brewing Company. They always have folks out there with, little cups of beer. And she's like, screw it, I'm just going to take one. And she took one going out. And then, we doubled back on the same location. She's like, I'm going to take another one. And next thing you know, we're running back down freaking Kelly Drive. And she's running like, woo, I'm like a pony. I'm going. And I'm like, what the hell? And she's like, we're going to do this every race from now on. And I
just stuck.
And I couldn't drink any of the beer because I'm like, I have no idea what you are experiencing right now because I have a gluten allergy. and I was like, there wasn't any gluten-free beer. So that is how that started.
Yes.
And the equivalent there is now in your 50s, right? You talk about some people have just made that choice to say, I've hit my 50s, I'm going to hang them up. I'm going to get old because I stopped playing and I'm just going to let it go by the wayside.
Yep.
And this kind of analogy of, no, I'm just hitting the wave here. I'm going to add a little glass of Prosecco or a G&T, and that's going to get me to the rest of the way. That's kind of the thought process here with mile 20 and the 50s, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like that beautiful parallel. Like it's a hard time in life mentally. Like you can definitely succumb to a lot of the challenges.
Menopause. Women, menopause.
Sucked, and it's like getting hit with a Mack truck. But yeah, like just choosing, like our podcast is about not only running and trying to motivate people, it's about the travel experience that we've had in each of the 50 states, the places we've eaten, the places we've stayed, the wonderful things that we've seen.
And continue to see and continue to push each other, despite, like every once in a while I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to like run too much longer. And then, and then I have this like epiphany moment going, dude, I'm afraid to stop running, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I turn 55 next week and I'm really afraid to stop running because like I don't want my body to stop.
Yeah.
And things don't hurt. I'm going to knock on wood. Things don't hurt right now. And I'm feeling good about things. And I'm like, how do I keep that in perpetuity?
As opposed to me, who I don't know who all has seen Ozark here, but the little petite blonde girl her quote is like, if you want me to stop, you're gonna have to fucking kill me.
That's Lorri.
That's my
Is
take.
Lorri. That is Lorri all the time.
I'm going to fall over dead at 100 and somebody's going to have to pause my Strava.
Yep.
The Strava part of that is absolutely incredible. I want to
Is
say
it true?
it is you guys are unbelievable role models because we had a prep call on Tuesday of last week and then I went for a run after
Hey!
our prep call
Yay!
and it was like okay you have to force this and I think of my wife's mom and her grandma, now great grandma and grandma for our daughter Maxine. So I hope that you get to experience what they are experiencing because they are just first grandkid on
I
that side
love
of the
that.
family. But so active, right? Like great grandma is playing pickleball on a consistent basis and getting up and down. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. How are you in your 80s playing pickleball? It's like, well, because I never stopped. I was playing golf
Exactly.
or I was playing tennis and I picked this up. And now it's just something that, what else am I going to do? It gets me out of bed. I feel good. It's just such a fun way to exist. And I think that what you guys are doing through the story is also your podcast is also storytelling for the next 100 years, right? Like
Yeah.
I get very emotional when I talk about Maxine and like the future and all of our family members have done some version of that book, like the My Story, so that way you
Yeah.
can read those, but I'm a big proponent of the ideology that is there are three times someone dies. The first time someone dies is when they realize that death is possible. The second time is when you actually die. And then the third time is the last time that somebody says your name or talks about you. And when you think
Yeah.
about the impact that you guys are having with this podcast and the stories that you are telling, I mean, think 100 years from now, grandkids, great grandkids are still able to listen to the absolute insane shit that you guys were doing on a week to week basis across the globe.
You know what brings me joy, Alec? So Lorri said earlier that her daughter Maggie, so it's her one of her oldest of the three kids.
Yeah.
She's our editor and producer, and she always sits on the table opposite of where we're sitting right now. And she's not here today, but when she is, and we're telling a story, and we're kind of cracking ourselves up, and when she starts cracking up about something, I'm like, that's why we're doing this, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Oh, it's
exactly
awesome.
Like Lori's friend Deneen, who Lori bikes with. Deneen just ran her first half marathon, and she listens to every one of our episodes, and she's like all inspired about it, and like hopefully we're going to get her to run a race with us.
Yeah.
But these are the things that even if we're touching 10 people's lives, 20 people's lives out there. And, or like you, like, hey, you know what? I went out for a run because like
Yeah.
these ladies who are in their 50s are freaking doing this like every day and like, and
Yeah.
it's just something that like, you see somebody else doing something and we don't do it like really, really well. We're not experts. We're not
terrible
we're
at it.
not running like sub 2 hour marathons like in London the other day.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
It is
Just
incredible.
Shout out for
Oh
that.
my goodness.
But we are the back of the pack, right? We are like
The
a mullet.
grinders.
We are like a mullet. You
Yeah.
have business in the front, party in the back. We are the mullet in the back of the pack.
I don't
That's
love
it.
that. I don't love that for you guys, depending on the era that you are in. I know the mullet's coming back, but I think we can come up with a better analogy
We
than
are the back.
than
We are the
mullet.
back of the Packers. We are the party in the back. We are the
Yes.
party
So-
in the back. And and so we're not out there breaking records.
Right.
But damn
We're
it, like,
finishing.
we're finishing every marathon and we're having a freaking, I would say 99% of the time,
You're
having a blast.
doing
Because
it.
there have been some.
Well,
Yeah.
this season, I would say 2026, maybe more like 60-40.
It's been a
40 maybe this year. but it's still got all of them done.
So I need to ask you a tough question. I think back to my sports days, and I used to have these shorts from our high school basketball team that said "Good enough is neither." And it is a thought process that I have always thought about and believed in. And it's a part of what we set out to create in terms of the activating greatness that greatness can look in a ton of different ways, but at the end of the day, good enough is neither. Now, I've had a couple of guests come on and call bullshit on good enough is neither, because some areas you have to be willing to be good enough, and other areas you have to be excellent. And there is this balance. And at Velocity, we have this question of, is this my best work? And if you can answer that confidently and say, right now, today, this is my best work because I have 63% to give and I'm giving the 63%. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are as the mullet. I guess we'll go with it for now. What is your thought on the concept of good enough is neither, as you are showing up on a day-to-day basis, and some days you have it and some days you don't, and you still show up? So tough question. I'm curious. Either one of you, go ahead and go.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that one first.
Please.
I think the most important thing is like defining what your goal is, right? Because if my goal was to be like a really fast runner, I would be doing things differently right now. But if my goal is that I want to actively travel, I want to spend time with my best friend, I want to finish a marathon, I want to have a freaking good ass time, like, and meet people along the way.
And feel good after the race.
And feel good after the race. If those are my success metrics, then you know what? I feel like I'm doing everything that I should be doing right now.
Yeah.
But if I changed what my goal is, right, where it's like, hey, I want to go and get a personal record. I want to decrease my race time by an hour.
Yeah.
Like we would do things differently. I wouldn't stop every time, maybe people
you get a rock in your shoe.
Yeah, like or if I had to go to the bathroom, like maybe I would not stop at a Porta John, or and I know we shared this with you last week when we did the pre meeting.
Yeah,
Lorri and I had a marathon in Rehoboth, Delaware in December, and there were, when I tell you, thousands and thousands of geese that were migrating in lines, like rapid lines, along the shore.
Ocean tide coming in. It was amazing.
Thousands of geese. We stopped in the middle of the race and recorded it because it's about the journey. So I think that for each person individually, your greatness is really dependent upon what goals you set for yourself. And if you feel like you are doing everything possible to go and meet those goals, great. Or, if you need to go and adjust them, great. But that's the way I'm approaching things, because again, I love that we can go and do these races, sometimes back-to-back weekends, or this past fall, we did 3 weekends in a row of marathons, like bam, bam, bam.
Goodness.
We've run, in the past 8 months, we have run 9 marathons. And back in 2022,
it was 2021 to 22. It was 17
marathons in a year, with 1 weekend where we did a marathon on a Saturday and a Sunday in 2 different states.
And I think that was also the same year we did 3 weeks in a row back then too.
Yeah,
we did 3 and 3 weeks.
So to go back to your original question, I feel like. And I feel like, Lorri, your goals and your success metrics are very, very similar to mine, and that's why we gel. That's why we're having. That's why we're still doing this.
I mean, I would say when I first started running, my goals were very different. I was very much time focused, but I'm going to be real. I was non-athletic in high school. I've never been athletic. I mean, this was something that came on in my mid-20s. And I realized that my goals shifted, especially when I met Laura. I'm like, to me, what brings me joy? No, it's not about that. But it's
You can say it.
It's like, also, any goal that you're making in life should bring you joy.
Right.
And if it's not bringing you joy, why is that your goal? And the process should bring you joy.
Yeah, I mean, and this really translated. I'll share a work experience. This really translated work-wise. Like, I was recently in a role that I just was not happy in. And, I had this epiphany moment of, between running, right, focusing on joy. Lorri and I went to an all-women's camp last year called Camp Chateau. highly recommend that. We're not getting
Amazing.
paid for recommending this, but this was in France, and it was not about like making yourself better. It was about how do you find those things in your life that bring you joy, and are you doing everything within your control to focus on bringing yourself more joy. And so you find, and probably, you talk to so many people in your industry that they're miserable in their jobs, but man, I'm successful. And it's like, but are you happy? And that's when I'm coaching my team members. It's like, hey, are you happy doing what you're doing? What are your priorities? I can't prioritize stuff for you. So when I came back from this camp last summer, because I was just not a happy camper like where I was, I actually had a conversation with my former boss to go and say, hey, dude, like, my job isn't bringing me joy anymore. And here is like, and I flew back the entire way from France thinking about like how we could go and like reorganize, the team. So that way we can, help the structure of the organization, but then also like get me engaged in a different way. I am so freaking happy doing my job right now because we changed things, but it was controlling my destiny. And like, how do you figure out and be honest with yourself? Because sometimes the thing that you are successful at and that is raking in money and stuff is not the thing that is bringing you joy. Yeah. And that is the hardest self-awareness thing to go and like kind of take a step back on going, whoa, right? So
yeah. Well, I need to like double click on 17 things you guys said there. So I no, it's amazing. I told you guys I'm an emotional human, so I've got goosebumps. I'm ready to run through a brick wall. I'm not ready to run a marathon, but I can maybe do 2 miles. But I asked the question about the good enough is neither and your thought process on it. And we instantly went to, we can't even really know if good enough is right for us if we don't know our goals and what expectations we have. And if we have the right goal, then it's a lot easier to say, hey, this actually is my best work. Whereas if you were trying to set PRs, you might look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, this is probably not my best work to reach that goal. So it comes back to expectation setting and goal setting that is so important in that. But I want to focus on this concept of joy for a minute. 30 episodes into this podcast, a recurring theme is, hey, work doesn't have to suck. And it's been really delightful hearing people from every different background. And whether that is a woman in construction, a woman in the life sciences, a male CEO who has been in the construction industry for 50 years saying, I don't want my people to be unhappy. I don't want to be unhappy. Life is way too short for this thing that takes up so much of our time to suck. Because then Absolutely. What happens more often than not is you don't then have the hobby like running. You then don't have the hobby like fishing or reading because all your time is being drained and your energy is being drained and you aren't finding those positive ways to pass the time. Which brings me to my question. You guys both have very different backgrounds in terms of your day-to-day. And especially when you first met, let's say, 2014, I think is where we were. And Lorri, you were sitting in one side of the world when you first met Laura, in the other, trying to probably climb the corporate ladder. And Lorri, you were probably trying to get into the what was it? The parent teacher conference and running these groups and running a nonprofit. But yet you guys melded. Like, I've heard you say best friend 5 times, and it makes me emotional just hearing you guys say that. Like, you're intentionally saying that. So I'm going to ask my bad podcast question. How in the hell did you guys both find running in the concept of, I'm an executive and I have 50 hours a week and a child, and I'm still going to dedicate time at 3 a.m. And then Lorri, in the other perspective, 3 kids, however, like, you're doing all these other things, and yet your schedules were able to align. You were able to be intentional about that. And you were able to balance being a mom, being a woman, being a leader, and run. Honestly, that's not even a bad podcast question. It might be an awful one. Like, that is heavy. That is a big question for 5:18 Central Time on a Tuesday afternoon.
I think that it was just us making it a priority, really.
We made each other a priority.
Yeah.
It wasn't even our running. It was like we made each other a priority.
Yeah, and it was us because we had the common goal. We met through a run group that met at 5 a.m. in the morning. That's the beauty of running or doing anything, working out at 5 a.m. Really, all other obligations are not there except for the one that you owe to yourself. So if you struggle with motivation and figuring out how to fit it in, nobody needs you at 5 a.m.
Nope.
And that's your time.
Oh, and
Take it.
we love the early mornings.
Yes. So like we would do our short runs during the week at 5 a.m. and we would meet. And then on the weekend it was, okay, what do we got
What's the
going on?
schedule?
Yeah. Where are the kids going?
I mean,
What?
We did one run in Philly that was fun. My daughter had a dance convention.
I love that
Yeah,
run.
there was a big trend on Strava where people were spelling things out or like drawing designs through their running routes. She and I actually did an epic run route through Philadelphia.
We wrote the word epic on the streets.
Yeah.
It was the most. That was the most fun. And if I mean, I think it was like maybe 7 or 8 miles, but like it didn't even feel like it.
No,
you know?
we were just running an epic.
Yeah.
Oh my
In Philly
gosh.
because I had to. I'm like, listen, dude, if we're gonna get the miles in, it's got to be in the city because I've got to be in the city all weekend at a dance convention. So, I mean, we just did what we had to do to get through that time.
Yeah, and you know, like it's funny because my mom has asked me like, or has made comments like, I just don't know how you run like all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, Mom, it's kind of like, you know, you're sitting around a kitchen table like with your girlfriends drinking wine. I said, so that's like mine and Lori's time to spend together, but we're not sitting at the table drinking wine. Like, you know, like during the races, we'll have a cocktail, but like, you know,
And after.
but yeah, but when we're, you know, because we both live very busy lives, we still do, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like that's my girlfriend time. Like that's my time to connect with Lori, to be able to take that time to just catch up with each other. Like there have been times where I have been injured, and again, because our lives are busy and stuff, and you know, like, you know, right now with the podcast, we get to see each other at least once a week. But like sometimes, like we would go like, you know, 2 or 3 weeks
or a month.
yeah, or a month. And it was like, dude, I like really miss you. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and, you know, so I think, you know, when you find your people and you will do anything and everything to be able to spend time with them. It just so happens that we happen to have this love for running as well as traveling together. And like Lori and I, even though we are very much like you know, we have like kind of gone different trajectories in terms of like stay-at-home mom, you know, or
yang in all aspects of our life.
Yes. Yeah.
If you go into our hotel room, you know, because again, I'm just a very organized, like
He's military.
dress right, dress cover down, and then there's Lori's corner of the hotel room where it's like looks like everything exploded, you know. And
Yeah.
Unicorn color.
it is,
I mean, corner.
right? You know, but we operate so well together. Like just even through our traveling. You know, one thing that I'll share is we ran a marathon in Alabama. Was it Alabama? Was the rainstorm? No, Jackson, Mississippi. It was Jackson, Mississippi. Which one was that?
No, that was Mobile, Alabama.
Alabama.
Yeah.
So we were flying down and we got stuck through a storm and they landed us in Tallahassee, Florida. And
we had a very narrow gap. We had like a tight window for
like we had
arrival and packet pickup.
yeah, we had to pick up
Oh my gosh.
like that night.
Because the race was the next day.
And we were like, oh crap. So literally like they're getting us off the plane and Lori and I are already on our phones, right? And we're figuring out, okay, what are the options? Like we already had a car lined up, like X and X amount of hours. We're going to be like screeching in there on like, you know, 2 wheels, but man, we're going to do this. We ended up picking up like 2 other runners at the airport that were on, you know, on our flight, and we didn't even know them. And, you know, it just, you know, we drove out with them and we made it. But the thing that I loved about this is that through all of our traveling, I mean, we are so savvy travelers that we are able to adjust to like adapting. Yeah. We call it like pivot,
Yeah.
and that's a life lesson, right? That, God, it's just like anytime something comes up, like it's like, okay, like we're just gonna go and like adapt. We're gonna just go and change. We're just like you can't be mad about it, right? You have to go and like figure it out. So that has transcended into all aspects of our lives.
Yeah.
There is such a level of admiration that the two of you have for each other that is noticeable within seconds. And I'm sure you hear that often, but I felt obligated to say it. And
I
I
love
think
her. She's
Love her too.
I love you, man.
I love her family too.
Well, obviously, there's that intertwined of the community and Maggie helping on the podcast and Maggie texting me. I did say that I'm going to blame her for the snafu on our audio early on. And she said, I'm sorry, I myself was running. And so I mean, it's clearly being passed out in some capacity or the other. But can you talk a little bit about how in the hell do you stay consistent for this long? When we talk about when I mentioned the greatness in leadership, the three things that I've really seen are the consistency and discipline, and then having the community. And clearly we've covered that community. You guys have pushed each other. I think it's going to help on the discipline and the consistency. But can you just talk through how through all of the different changes, the children graduating and going to high school and college and getting promoted or changing jobs, how have you maintained this level of discipline and consistency? And what advice would you offer to somebody who is trying to do that as well?
I'm sure the answer is a little different for both of us.
Yes, please.
For me, I would say it's having a little bit of emotional intelligence, being in tune to who you are and knowing what your own limitations are in your brain. So we've committed to running a mile a day for this year, for the year of 2026. And, now we're coming towards the end of April now and still doing it consistently.
It sucks this month.
Yeah. That doesn't sound great right now.
Sorry.
I am one of those people because I was a stay-at-home mom. There are times where I don't get out of my pajamas. Okay, I'm going to be real. Like I don't have to. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not seeing anybody. I'm hanging around my house. I'm doing laundry. I'm cleaning. I'm doing other things.
Yeah.
There are days I don't like to get dressed. And I'm now committed to running a mile a day. And I know that emotionally, my emotional intelligence, there are days that are screaming at me, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
I want to stop. This is exhausting. It's not something I don't want to do this. I got peer pressured into it by these people that surround me. But I know that that's going to happen upon, on some days of the month or some days of the week. And it may be multiple days in a row. But I also know that I've made it to the end of April. And I know that if I just keep, it's kind of like what we talked about before. It's not always the small things that make greatness, right?
Yes.
It's the combination of small things that make the greatness. And I think having the emotional intelligence to know that my continuous running of 1 mile a day will make up for an amazing year, even though I don't want to do it today. Like, how can I stop now, even though I really don't want to? And so then you put on your shoes and you get out there and you go do it because you know you're going to feel better afterwards.
Yeah, I love that answer, Laura.
That's so good.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. I think for myself, discipline is really about like how you show up when it's like inconvenient, right? Because I tell you what, how many freaking mornings, Lori, right? Like, because in the morning when we're gonna do our run at like 5 a.m., 5:30. We always text each other, right? Because like we got to make sure like the other person's awake because
I don't want to get out of bed and get dressed and she's still snoozing
and
over
I'm still
there.
snoozing, right? And like I think that maybe has happened like once or twice, like in all of our years that we have been running together. So we do the text, and then every once in a while in the wintertime when it's like minus 10, and it's like, and I'll do like it's really cold outside. He's like, yeah, it is. Buckle up, buttercup.
Yeah.
It's like, And so that discipline is about like, wow, this is really inconvenient. This is really like uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that like you got to dig deep. You find the grit because I have this commitment to this person that's sitting to my left here. And the other thing that I think keeps me focused is that results don't come from one big push. Right.
Mm.
It comes from a lot of sustained effort from those baby steps of things that you just have to do a little bit of, so those, even like those little runs that we do, those 3 or 4 mile runs that we do during the week, sometimes you can say, oh, why do they matter? You just do a big run on the weekends and, just get it over with. Like sometimes we do that too, but those little runs, they matter.
They're the foundation.
They are the foundation. And I think that again transcends to like just life in general for me is that like there are those little things that like I have to do, whether it's in work or like just managing my schedule, juggling like my time management, right? So that way then, I do those little things so that way I can open up time to be able to dedicate, spending it with Lorri and running and traveling, on the weekends and stuff, right? So that's how I would answer that one.
Yeah.
Results don't come from one big push. Might just be the name of this episode for me, and the theme of it.
Although maybe like giving birth, maybe.
Yeah. Well, listen, that's a long ass process. Maxine, it took 26 hours for Maxine to enter this world. So I think I'll get in trouble if I say that was one big push.
That's very, very good of you, Alec.
Thank you. Yes, I'm
Smart
learning
man.
every
Smart
day.
man.
Every day I get a little smarter somehow. Mostly due to Megan on a consistent basis. But I did, today I actually had a bunch of commentary and had a LinkedIn post about the process, and especially in the B2B world and the industries that we work within, construction and life sciences and insurance, a sales cycle is 12, 18, 24, 28 months. That's not one meeting that wins the deal. It is 74
slog.
quality.
It's a slog.
Yeah, it is. It's quality and it's being consistent over being flash in a pan. And somebody that can run, one marathon, they're awesome. But 62 marathons, like, you start to look at what is that process. And again, it comes back to the end goal of if you want to run one marathon and that's what you set out to do, amazing. If we want to run one in every state, then the expectations, the output is going to be a lot different in order for us to be successful there.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah, when we were doing multiples, you can't press for PRs at every turn. That's just not, your body can't handle that.
No, and in fact, we even noticed that, earlier on when we first met in 2014, there were a ton of people in our running community, right? There was I mean, there were like 20, 30 people that would run in the morning. We're like some of the only two that are still like out there running. And, and we were always, the
back
of the pack. And, but I think that there, like you even said the other day, there's something to be said about, that we have not, pressed our bodies to the point where we were willing to break ourselves to get a PR. That was not what this was about.
Yeah, it wasn't about that. Yeah.
And it's not to disparage anyone else who wants to go and do that. But
that's how you break a 2-hour marathon. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That was not part of our goal, our goals together.
I love it. One story I want you guys to tell before we wrap up, and then we can do a couple of rapid fire questions. But you might have hopped off a plane or you were at a restaurant. I'm going to say it was in Wisconsin, but you've been to every state and to a lot of countries. But there was maybe a group of women who were in their 20s or 30s, and they kind of alluded. I don't remember if there was an alluding to that you guys were still doing this or if you guys overheard them, but there was just kind of this perspective of like, hell yeah, we are still doing it and we can show that it's possible 20 years later. Do you mind telling that story? Because I was ready to run.
You're good at telling it.
We were on so it's
Grandmas.
grandma's marathon in Duluth,
Okay.
and
Okay.
they have, so if anybody who's listening to the podcast, wants to go and run that marathon,
It's amazing.
it's amazing. And take the train. There's an old historic train that actually you can hop on, and you take it to the start of the race.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's all runners, and we just happened to be sitting across from two gals that were in their 20s, kind of, like us, running together, starting out their journey.
It's funny when you look at them though, and you thought, are they our peers? And then you're like, oh no,
You're like,
oh, no, they're not our peers.
no, 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 no. And, so we struck up a conversation with them. And at some point in time, and it was a very innocent, comment, because, runners will talk about like, oh, like have you been your favorite runs, and is
Yeah.
your first marathon? And when people ask us, is this your first marathon? We're like, oh no, this is marathon number 72. I mean,
Yeah.
So one of them very innocently went and said that, like, wow, I think it's really great that you guys are still out here, like, getting it done,
Yeah.
And so we got off the train, and we were like, I was like,
Are we that old?
it's like, huh. But then it was like, wow, like it's kind of like the double-sided compliment, right? Where
Yeah.
it was like, well, wow, yeah, we're not the younger ones anymore, in the field. I mean, seriously, like that's something that we look at now. We're like, do we see anybody else at the start line who's older than us?
I'm like,
right?
I got gray hair.
That one's got gray hair. Or I heard a woman the other day when we were running in Delaware, at the Delaware Running Festival. There was a woman who was 72, and she was running with a woman who was in her 60s. And she's like, girl, I am 72 years old, and I am running until like the wheels come off the bus, right?
Oh my gosh.
And it was like, oh my God, I turn 55 next week, and I'm just like, yep, I choose that. Like I choose that, so it's one of those things that if we can keep getting out there and having either other runners, other women, even our kids,
Yeah.
looking at us going, yeah, like, like I choose that.
Or younger, just anybody younger. If they can look at me and think, well, if she can do it, I can do it, then yes. Because
Amen,
I
girl.
actually kind of had that a little bit. I don't know if I've ever told you this story. I was working out the YMCA.
Breaking news.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
This is back in Ocala. There was a woman. So I'd been flirting with doing the Goofy. So the Goofy at Disney is where you do the half marathon on Saturday and the full marathon on Sunday. And I'd never ran either, but I was thinking about doing them both.
Because stories go big or go home,
Like, well, if I hate it, I never want to do it again. At least I can check the box that I did them both.
Sure. That's a great way to think about it.
But there was an older woman at the Y that was wearing the I did it, ran the 39.3 Goofy shirt. And I was like, oh, you did the Goofy? And she's like, yep, sure did. And she walked on, and I'm like, well, she can do it. I can do it.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
if I can pay that forward to anybody, then that would be full circle and perfection. Have I ever told you that before?
No, you have not told me
Wow.
that.
That's why we're on. That's
And
why
that's
we're
a
on the
first.
Activating Greatness podcast, just for that first. Well, I will say it as an utter compliment. I have struggled post multiple ACL surgeries, and as a kid who thought their only future was to play semi-professional soccer or basketball in South America somewhere and just live off of food stamps, and then who has had 3 major reconstructive surgeries and has basically been like, well, I'm 27, I'm old. Well, I'm 30, I'm old. Like, it's over for me. It has just been so eye-opening and enlightening and amazing to hear both of you not only do this, but to do it with such vigor and passion and excitement. And I think that word that I keep coming back to, Laura, is joy. It's just so tangible when you guys talk about this. So while I might not say if you can run 62 marathons, I can run 62 marathons, but I might be more inclined to run 3 miles. Maybe I'll try to. I don't think I've ran a 4 mile straight since I was 23 years old. So there's
But
always
again, you just don't jump into it. You
yeah.
take baby steps and you
Oh,
work your way up to it, right? Because
And,
yeah.
and if for any reason the knees do become an issue, there are other things to challenge you. You can
yeah.
cycle, you can
Ooh.
swim. All these things are lower impact
You
too.
can
Yeah.
So there's a
hike.
way you can hike. Yeah,
Love
there's.
hiking. I do have to tell you, I told you guys the weird story about how I was born in an elevator before this, but I was ran over by a bike as a kid. I was like 2.5 years old, and next door neighbor, she was 11, just front wheel, back wheeled me, said that I had a
Oh,
smirk on my face. I lost all of my teeth
Oh my
as a
gosh.
baby. Didn't have teeth for like 7 years. Had a speech impediment, and every year I asked for my teeth to come for Christmas or my birthday, and they never came. I say all of this to say I don't know how to ride a bike. This is 31 years later, and I was traumatized. And my biggest nightmare is when Maxine's like, I can't wait to ride a bike, and I'm gonna have to learn how to do it with her. So
well,
I think I'll
sometimes when you're a parent, you just you
you just
find a
learn.
way. You
Yeah,
Yep.
you
find a
just
way.
move on. 31 years of trauma, you tuck it away and you forgive Lauren was her name. You forgive her 32 years. I still haven't. I never will.
Yeah, but here's the
But
beauty about you about riding the bike is that
yes.
you're driving it. You're in
I can
control.
now run somebody.
No,
Exactly.
Yes.
Just
No,
to
no.
make sure
Okay.
it's not Maxine.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
all.
No. No. Absolutely. I can't believe that story is now on the Activating Greatness podcast, and
it is
I
now out
love it.
there.
It's on the record. I've got 4 rapid fire questions for each of you, and then we'll get out of here. I'm just gonna ask it. Either one of you go first, but I want both of you to answer. Question number 1: what is one thing that you do every day to be the best version of yourself?
All right, so I have a perfume tray. That's not how you thought I would start this, right? I have this perfume tray in my closet, and you know me, I'm always wearing my perfume, but I have a little plaque that it's like a little wood plaque that I bought. I can't even remember how many years ago, and it says, "You did not wake up today to be a weak ass bitch." And when I put I'm dead serious. Every single day when I put my perfume on, that is what I look at every single day.
Hell yeah. I love
Okay,
it.
her
Lori?
answer is way better than mine. So I would
It's not a
just
competition.
I would just say I have a very strict routine, a little OCD about a
Love it.
routine in the morning, just like getting up,
Are you going to talk about your
breakfast.
coffee cups?
I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to go into that many details, but
But
yeah,
you have a routine. You
I have a
stick to it.
routine.
Does the routine travel?
It does because it
Okay.
like involves my vitamins, and I'll pack all my vitamins
Yes.
up, and I pack my teas to go. So yeah, pretty much it travels.
I love it. I love it. Those were 2 that's fantastic. And I need that plaque like for everybody in America.
Send me
Question
your
number
address. I'll send it to you.
Question number 2. What's the most underrated skill when it comes to this concept we've been talking about within consistency and discipline? What's the most underrated aspect of that?
For fear of repeating myself, I would go back to emotional intelligence.
Ooh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I just feel like people underrate, like, really creating within their mind, like, analyzing who you are and your trends and how you react to things and learning to adapt. Like, I try and tell my kids, like, who you are right now is not who you are later in life. And your mental health and everything surrounding mental health is a practice. It's like yoga. You have to practice it. It's so easy to let negativity and the I don't want to's into your life. But if you are practicing positivity and looking at all the things you're grateful for, I just think that it changes everything. So I would definitely say it's always underrated, the importance of emotional intelligence.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love it.
And there's this thing from the New York Times called the Good List. So if you haven't looked at this, so I read this article a couple of weeks ago, and it basically, this author every day has a, like, what's your reflection on the day of something good that happened? And I have been every day for like the past 2 months, I've been doing this, and it takes me like 2 seconds to go and do. I actually started reading it to my team the other day, and they were like, "Ooh, that's freaking awesome," you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, it could just be as simple as like, hey, I really enjoyed the fact that like I had a really good cup of coffee this morning and my dog sat on my lap. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, it's those things. But My answer to this one is very similar to Lori, but a little bit different. I think the underrated skill that I would focus on is being able to give yourself grace. Right.
Hell yeah.
There is a saying right now, and it's still on the placard. So when Lori and I run through Downingtown, Pennsylvania, there is a sign that says, because they always have like, hey, like, the book fair, is going on,
Yeah.
or, this and this, the farmers market is coming up. They have a thing on the sign right now that says, evenings forgive, mornings forget. And I said that to you the other day, and I like because I'm like a pop and I read all the signs when we're running, and I'm like, oh, look at the mile 20 sign. Oh, look, running for no horseplay, and this sign, evenings forgive, mornings forget. So
Yeah.
yeah, be able to like just give yourself grace. Give
Yeah.
yourself grace. It's okay to go and not be perfect at something. Tomorrow's another day.
Oh man, those were two fantastic answer. This kind of bleeds into that. What's something that people need to move on from?
I'll take that one first.
Yeah.
Not not being the best at something. I
Mm,
grew up as the oldest child, and it was always important to be the best, to do the
mhm.
best. I was the salutatorian, of my high school.
Yeah.
It was like always goal driven, goal driven. I think that running is something that I enjoy, but it is very humbling because
Yeah.
I'm not the best at it, right? When you think about like, running a sub 2 hour, marathon, right?
Yes.
I think there's memes out there right now. It's like I work really hard at my mediocrity.
Right?
Yes,
Like
yeah.
It's really
Yes,
humbling to
being
be.
me
like it's
being just super
humbling.
mediocre and having a clean house is really difficult. Like it's
Right,
Right.
hard.
right.
Yeah.
So I think, like just something to move on from is that, even if you keep trying, like, you were talking about, like, wow, I'm just trying to run 4 miles. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, just, like give yourself grace
Yeah.
and be okay with the fact that, like, you know what, a mile is better than not doing anything,
Yeah, yeah.
and just kind of starting from there. And I love a book. Oh God, the author's name, Darren Hardy, wrote a book called The Compound Effect. And it
Mm,
talks about you change one little thing in your life, and then it can compound from there. And then you can
yeah.
change another thing and another thing. So if you change your routine and you, like Lori and I, where you say, hey, I can't get my runs in or I can't get my exercise in, I don't have any time for myself later in the day. Change the routine. I mean, Lori, busy mom with three little kids, when we started going and doing this,
Yeah.
that was our time, right? And
Yeah.
and so it's like you change that one little thing, and now you feel this accomplishment, and then next thing you know, you come home, and then maybe you're making your bed before you go to work, or
Yeah,
you start
yeah.
your day, or you get out of your pajamas. It's just
I know.
But the compound effect, I
I
absolutely
love
love that
that.
book. I would highly recommend that one.
That's great.
I'm going to go off topic a little bit because I
Please.
spent the weekend well, not the weekend. I spent Sunday night with my youngest daughter, who's a freshman at Penn State. I would say put the damn phone down.
Oh, amen, sister.
Man, it's so good.
I know that there's a lot of important information and I'm guilty of it myself, but the human connection is the most important connection that we have out there, and you're not going to find it in your phone. I know you feel like you are because social media has told you you are. You are not, in fact, going to find it there. You
Mm,
need to find it face to face, face to
yeah.
face.
I can't echo that enough. It is like Megan and I both realized it. And then you have a daughter and you're just sitting there. And now, when you're 2 months old, it's one thing. Now, I mean, if you don't pay attention to her for 10 seconds, she's like, guys, what's up? And you all of a sudden realize, like, I was just looking at this box
Yeah.
as she's trying to take her first steps. You're like, what? Why does this thing even exist right now? So I love that one. Again, two awesome answers. We're going to finish out. What's the best advice that you've ever received?
Ooh, best advice I've ever received. God, I don't know. You go first.
Um, mine had to be when I was a 21-year-old second lieutenant in the Army. We were on a firing range. So I was like the officer in charge of this firing range. And Staff Sergeant Nunez comes over to me and like we're having this conversation, right? So he was one of the drill sergeants, and this was like private, so it was like basic training. I was in a unit that managed basic trainees, and which, by the way, it was like the first time we had gender integrated training in the Army. So like that's how far back I go, right? So we're at this firing range, and it's, I don't know, God, it's like midnight because it was like a late night thing, and we're just shooting the shit, and he says to me like, "Hey, LT, like, can I give you some advice?" And I'm like, sure. Like, can I say no? Like, and he was a super nice guy. So I was like, yeah. And so the one thing he said to me was, "Hey, always make sure that that little butter bar that's, on your collar." So it was like my second lieutenant rank. Don't let that make you think that that's what earns you the respect, like your title. Like, always put your soldiers before yourself. And just always lead that way, and your soldiers will always take care of you. And that, I mean, like, seriously, like that 21 years old, that has resonated, like even like, when we were on the chow line, in the Army, soldiers always eat first. If I get like freaking crumbs, that's what I got. Right. And it's the same thing like with Lorri and I, right? It's like you put the other person before yourself, like in times when I have been in distress, right? In races, right? I know that she has my back every single second, and vice versa. It happens more when she's got my back, because like she's always like the jolly, jelly bean in the front, like, but and it has transcended into like, my work life. But it's always putting other people first, being that servant leader, and that was the best advice I could have been ever given.
Oh, I love it.
I'm really struggling with this. I'm going to be real. I'm like trying to think about good advice that I've been given, because I feel like I've been guided so many different ways before. But I would say probably before I got married, I think I was told that as a bride, which I've carried this over to me through leadership positions. Like I was the PTO president for my kids' elementary school. I was president of a couple of the dance parent organizations. So what I learned was that they're like, hey, the bride sets the tone. Like, if you're going to be a bitchy bride, nobody at the wedding is going to be having fun. So you need, and I don't think she was saying that because I was being bitchy. I think that they were just making me self-aware that if everybody's going to have a good time, I had to have a good time. And I think that translated into organizations. Like when I took over for the parent-teacher organization at the elementary school, the previous board had a lot of drama involved in it.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of cattiness, and I had decided that the incoming board that I was president of was going to get shielded from all of that. So like people would come to me with drama, and it would end and stop with me. So I feel like even now there are times where I'm being exposed to things that are negative, and I'm able to shelter my own brain and my own self and project positivity, which I think affects everybody around you. So you set the tone of what you get back at you in life.
Yeah, you might have been struggling to get to the thought process, but I loved the thought process. I had somebody on last week who, with the best leadership advice he's ever received, was that you're always on stage as a leader, and how you show up on stage is how your team will react. And if you show up angry, the team's going to be angry. If you show up on fire, the team's going to be on fire. And so I think it's very similar. And a lesson that it doesn't matter if you're a leader or a parent or whatever it is. Like, that's the best advice that I had received about being a dad, was that she would feel if I was stressed. And if she's crying and I'm calm, I can get her to calm down. If she's crying and I am like, holy shit, what am I going to do? That crying lasts another 45 minutes, maybe 2 hours. And so
there's no blood. There's no blood. Don't stress.
You're fine. You're fine.
There's no blood.
Well, she's just now at the point where she likes whipping herself around, and so it's like the head banging into the walls and into the cabinets is a whole new era that we are in here.
She'll learn.
In April. Or she'll get a couple black eyes.
That's right.
One of the two. I know that we set out for an hour. I think we're at the hour and 7 minute mark. because this was so much fun. I still feel like I could talk to the both of you for another hour. I'm not going to do that because I don't think podcasts should be 2 hours and 7 minutes long. Maybe we'll come back and have another episode in 2027 after I've run like 1 mile and then 2 miles and then
Or maybe a marathon.
let's, I'm going to set some proper expectations.
How about a 5K? How about a 5K?
Listen,
5K is good stuff.
I could commit to that. I can
Okay.
commit to that. I'll find a 5K, and over the next couple of months, I will train towards that in some capacity, and I will document it for you guys. And then
love that. I love that.
We'll do a little cross episode.
I love that.
I have to say thank you both so much. I know this was a bit of a stretch in terms of, hey, let's have the mile 20 on the Activating Greatness and vice versa. But to me, as two unbelievable women, you guys are what greatness embodies, and it's just your own way to get there. And there are so many lessons, if you're willing to listen to it, that you could give to somebody who is 28 and trying to become a CEO, or somebody that is 60 and trying to get back out there and do an activity. And I think that's really the whole purpose of why we wanted to have our show, was these leadership lessons from different perspectives. I never set out to think that it would be interviewing two wonderful, crazy people, but here we are. And I can't say thank you enough for spending some time with us and sharing your story with the Activating Greatness audience. Truly.
Thanks for having
Alec,
us.
we are so appreciative. I know Laura said it earlier. I want to just reiterate it. Like it means the world to us that you had us on your podcast, because it was fun to be sitting in the hot seat for once. And we just appreciate you. Thank you so much for everything you do, reaching out and showing people how to develop culture and all of those things in their businesses. It's so important.
Well said, Lorri. Well said. Ditto.
I love it. Well, I think people are going to really enjoy this episode. If you did enjoy it on the Activating Greatness side, go into the show notes, and we're going to link to Mile 20 everywhere that you can find it, on the podcast, Instagram. Go check them out. I've listened to a couple episodes. Bob Weinhold from Velocity Advisory Group has an episode on there as well. I would recommend go and listen to that episode. And then reach out to Lorri and to Laura and say, I found you through the Activating Greatness podcast. I'm sure that would make their days, and it would certainly make our days for you to let them know if you are a runner, not a runner, but going to try, or something that you took from the episode. As always, we love to hear the feedback from everybody listening.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you both. And everybody, we'll see you on the next episode of Activating Greatness.